Question: when can you drive using only your parking lights? Option number 1: on foggy days when visibility is low. Option number 2: 30 minutes after sunset or 30 minutes before sunrise. Option number 3: under no circumstances. The answer is option number 3: under no circumstances. Question: driving slower than the traffic flow tends to. Option number 1: make a collision less likely to happen. Option number 2: make a collision more likely to happen. Option number 3: not change the chances of having a collision. The answer is option number 2: make a collision more likely to happen. Question: which of these is the proper way to change lanes? Option number 1: signal, check your mirrors, and then change lanes. Option number 2: signal, check your mirrors, and look over your shoulder before you change lanes. Option number 3: signal before you change lanes, and then move over quickly. The answer is option number 2: signal, check your mirrors, and look over your shoulder before you change lanes. Question: you are driving on a divided street with multiple lanes in your direction. If you need to make a U-turn, where should you start? Option number 1: in the left lane. Option number 2: in the right lane. Option number 3: in the center lane. The answer is option number 1: in the left lane. Question: you are driving slowly in the fast lane of a freeway, and there is traffic behind you in your lane. The driver behind you wishes to drive faster. You should? Option number 1: stay in your lane so you don't impede the flow of traffic. Option number 2: drive onto the left shoulder to let the other vehicles pass. Option number 3: change lanes to the right when safe to do so. The answer is option number 3: change lanes to the right when safe to do so. Question: when approaching an intersection with a flashing red light, you must. Option number 1: come to a complete stop, yield to oncoming traffic and pedestrians, then proceed. Option number 2: reduce your speed and proceed with caution. Option number 3: come to a complete stop and remain stopped as long as the light is red. The answer is option number 1: come to a complete stop, yield to oncoming traffic and pedestrians, then proceed. Question: turn your front wheels toward the curb when you are parked. Option number 1: facing uphill. Option number 2: facing downhill. Option number 3: on leveled road. The answer is option number 2: facing downhill. Question: to back out of a parking space, always back slowly and look. Option number 1: over your right shoulder as you back up. Option number 2: look at your rear view mirror. Option number 3: have someone outside of the vehicle direct you. The answer is option number 1: over your right shoulder as you back up. Question: you should usually drive your vehicle slower when? Option number 1: when vehicle starts overtaking you. Option number 2: you see headlights coming on several vehicles behind you. Option number 3: you see brake lights coming on several vehicles ahead of you. The answer is option number 3: you see brake lights coming on several vehicles ahead of you. Question: the speed limit posted on a road is 55 miles per hour. When this road is wet. Option number 1: drive 10 to 15 miles per hour under the limit. Option number 2: drive 5 to 10 miles per hour under the limit. Option number 3, drive 2 to 5 miles per hour under the limit. The answer is option number 2, drive 5 to 10 miles per hour under the limit. Question: you must notify DMV within 5 days if you Option number 1, are cited for a traffic violation. Option number 2, sell or transfer your vehicle. Option number 3, paint your vehicle a different color. The answer is option number 2, sell or transfer your vehicle. Question: smoking inside a vehicle when a person younger than 18 years of age is present is? Option number 1, legal, if it is your child. Option number 2, not restricted by law. Option number 3, illegal at all times. The answer is option number 3, illegal at all times. Question: before you change lanes, you should check your mirrors and Option number 1, never look over your right shoulder. Option number 2, always slow down in your traffic lane. Option number 3, glance over your shoulder. The answer is option number 3, glance over your shoulder. Question: you can drive off the road to pass another vehicle. Option number 1, under no circumstances. Option number 2, if the vehicle ahead is turning left. Option number 3, if there are 2 or more lanes traveling in your direction. The answer is option number 1, under no circumstances. Question: using a cell phone while operating a motor vehicle is considered a distraction because Option number 1, it causes the driver to be concerned about the cost of the call. Option number 2, it occupies the driver's hands, eyes, and mind. Option number 3, it is an activity that draws the attention of other drivers. The answer is option number 2, it occupies the driver's hands, eyes, and mind. Question: dim your headlights for oncoming vehicles, or when you are within 300 feet of a vehicle. Option number 1, that you are approaching from behind. Option number 2, approaching you from behind. Option number 3, that you have already passed. The answer is option number 1, that you are approaching from behind. Question: roads are slippery after it first starts to rain. When the road is slippery, you should Option number 1, avoid making turns and stops while driving at high speeds. Option number 2, test your tires' traction while going uphill. Option number 3, decrease the distance you look ahead of your vehicle. The answer is option number 1, avoid making turns and stops while driving at high speeds. Question: when passing another car, you have enough space to return to the driving lane. Option number 1, if the other driver signals for you to re-enter the lane. Option number 2, if you look over your shoulder and see the passed car behind you. Option number 3, if you can see both of the passed vehicle's headlights in your rearview mirror. The answer is option number 3, if you can see both of the passed vehicle's headlights in your rearview mirror. Question: to avoid last-minute moves, you should be looking down the road to where your vehicle will be in about. Option number 1, 5 to 10 seconds. Option number 2, 10 to 15 seconds. Option number 3, 15 to 20 seconds. The answer is option number 2, 10 to 15 seconds. Question: roads with double solid yellow line markings down the center indicate that passing is. Option number 1, allowed from both directions. Option number 2, allowed only from your direction of travel. Option number 3, not allowed from either direction. The answer is option number 3, not allowed from either direction. Question: excessive speed. Option number 1, does not increase the chance of a crash. Option number 2, increases your ability to react to a hazard. Option number 3, often leads to high-risk decision-making. The answer is option number 3, often leads to high-risk decision-making. Question: alcohol is. Option number 1, a depressant. Option number 2, a stimulant. Option number 3, an antihistamine. The answer is option number 1, a depressant. Question: you are driving on a freeway with a posted speed limit of 65 miles per hour. Traffic is traveling at 70 miles per hour. You may legally drive. Option number 1, 70 miles per hour or faster to keep up with the speed of traffic. Option number 2, between 65 miles per hour and 70 miles per hour. Option number 3, no faster than 65 miles per hour. The answer is option number 3, no faster than 65 miles per hour. Question: as you enter into a roundabout, you should slow down and. Option number 1, yield to any crossing pedestrians and bicyclists. Option number 2, yield to any car already within the roundabout. Option number 3, both of the above. The answer is option number 3, both of the above. Question: if you hit an animal with your vehicle while driving on a California highway, you should. Option number 1, move the injured animal off the road. Option number 2, call the Humane Society. Option number 3, continue driving. The answer is option number 2, call the Humane Society. Question: U-turns in business districts are. Option number 1, always illegal because they are dangerous. Option number 2, legal whenever oncoming vehicles are not a hazard. Option number 3, legal at intersections, unless a sign prohibits them. The answer is option number 3, legal at intersections, unless a sign prohibits them. Question: if your vehicle begins to skid, you should. Option number 1, ease up on the gas pedal. Option number 2, brake as hard as possible. Option number 3, turn off the ignition. The answer is option number 1, ease up on the gas pedal. Question: it is illegal to park your vehicle. Option number 1, in an unmarked crosswalk. Option number 2, within 3 feet of a private driveway. Option number 3, in a bicycle lane. The answer is option number 1, in an unmarked crosswalk. Question: you must look for bicyclists in the same lanes used by motor vehicles because they. Option number 1, must ride facing oncoming traffic. Option number 2, are entitled to share the road with motor vehicles. Option number 3, illegally share lanes with motor vehicles. The answer is option number 2, are entitled to share the road with motor vehicles. Question: you may not park your vehicle. Option number 1, on the side of the freeway in an emergency. Option number 2, next to a red painted curb. Option number 3, within 100 feet of an elementary school. The answer is option number 2, next to a red painted curb.